Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. I'm starting a series today on DIY, do-it-yourself things that you can make for the garden from the grocery store. These are all products you can buy at the grocery store. They are effective, and I'm going to go over in the first video, how do you manage ants? We're going to use cornmeal. That's one way, not quite as effective as using borax or sodium borate, sodium tetraborate. Borax is actually a naturally occurring compound. It could be deemed organic if you believe in, having somebody stamp products for you, but all things are a chemical. Borax is a chemical, however, it occurs naturally, so that's up to you to decide how you want to use it. People have been using borax forever for laundry, different things. So let's start with the least effective way to manage ants. So you have ants that eat sugars, you have ants that eat protein, you have ants that eat both, you have different species of ants. So we're going to be talking about that as we progress through these different DIY recipes to control ants in your garden. This is basic cornmeal. Sprinkle cornmeal around the place where the ants are, either crawling with trails, where their nest is. They eat the cornmeal, in theory, and what that does is it messes up the way they digest food, basically. Some people say, some research says, they don't have the enzymes to break down cornmeal. Other people say it gets stuck in their gut, causes problems. They take this to the colony eats it. So first thing is you have to have a species of ant that's going to actually eat the cornmeal. Next, you have to be patient. This can take anywhere from 5 to 7 to 10 days. I did a lot of research on it. I've used it before and it looks like it works, but it takes a while for it to kind of work its way through the ant colony or the ant population. So you would just sprinkle this around. It's safe for pets. Dogs can eat it. Anybody can really eat this cornmeal directly as is. Nice, heavy, spread of cornmeal around the place where the ants are. See how things are 7 to 10 days. You want to do this if you're going to sprinkle it out in the area when you're going to have several days of dry weather. And some of the theory is that because this is dry, they eat it, it swells up in their stomach or in their gut, and that's what causes the problems. But 100% organic, assuming you buy organic corn, I guess. Sprinkle it around pretty heavily around where the ants are, let them eat it and see what happens. Now, from what I understand, works 50% of the time. I like using borax. This is borax, 1 tablespoon. Again, it's a naturally occurring compound, and it's basically boron. Boron, at high levels is toxic to the ants. It's relatively safe for people and animals, but you don't want your pet to eat this directly. So let me just talk about the container. I'm making more of not a syrup. You can turn this into a syrup and let the ants eat it. We're going to also be adding sugar to it, and this is going to really address sugar-eating ants. The container that this is going to go into, in past videos I've done plastic, and if you put it in plastic and your dog is running through your garden, smells the sugar, the pet or dog in this case could open it up and eat it. You don't want that. So I like using mason jars. They sit in the garden on the side, so the ingredients inside are going to stay moist. The ants are going to crawl in through holes in here, pretty big holes. I like to punch the holes from the inside out. It makes it a little bit sharp, just in case your dog comes and it licks it. I don't want to hurt the dog's tongue, but it'll quickly think this is too sharp. It'll leave the ingredients alone in there. So this is a way to make a pet-proof container, and the ants will easily crawl into here and get to the bait. Now, you can make this, again, more of a syrup. People have turned this into a spray and have sprayed along the cracks of a house or wherever the ants are crawling. For the garden, I like to just do something like this. Ratio, 1 tablespoon of borax, 4 tablespoons of sugar. In past videos I had a little bit more sugar in there. You just don't need all that. In a lot of cases people say just 1 tablespoon of sugar to 1 tablespoon of borax. If you don't want to jot down all the ratios and the recipes, please check out my blog. It's linked in the video description to a blog post on exactly what we're doing here. And on that blog I'll be putting all the DIY recipes up there, so you can go there and find out and find everything written out for you. So it's 1 tablespoon of borax going into any size mason jar. It doesn't have to be a mason jar, just anything with a lid. And we're putting in 1 tablespoon of the borax. It's dry. We're going to take some water, and we're all going to just mix it in here, you know, keep it simple. And maybe half as much water to borax, just throw in a splash, something like that. And you're just going to mix it around. And you want this to totally dissolve in the water. You know, and that might take a minute or 2, but, you know, for the demonstration, let's just say that it's thoroughly dissolved. And then this is the 4 teaspoons of sugar. We're not going to put it all in right away. Just put in, I don't know, maybe that's a tablespoon or 2. And what you're doing is you're blending the liquefied borax into the sugar, and you're really just mixing it around. And you really are just blending this first mix of the boron and the sugar together. And you can leave it like this. You know, if you put in too much water, that's fine. After you put in the 4 tablespoons of sugar, the ants will still eat this. You just want to spend a good couple of minutes mixing it all together, and then pour in the rest of the sugar. And it's thickening up nicely. Probably added a little bit too much water, but again, it's not something you have to over worry about. And it looks just something like this. So the boron that's in the borax is mixed through the sugar. Sugar-loving ants will come in here, and you can just spread it around the container, put the lid on it, and you just let it sit like that. The moisture keeps it soft. I, you know, like that. It's a little bit easier for the ants to get to, I think. And this works really, really quickly. Within a couple of days, you should see the end of the ants. Now, the key is you need to know if you have sugar-eating ants. You can make this same mix, and you could add some gelatin. And gelatin's usually made out of bone marrow. So it's protein-based. This is a packet of gelatin, and that would attract protein-eating ants. And you could put in, you know, I don't know, in this case, let's just go with the whole thing. So now we are adding in sugar. Well, we already added in sugar. Now we're adding in protein. And it's going to thicken up more, because that's what gelatin does. And just mix it up nicely. So you have a mix that now will be attractive to protein-eating ants, sugar-eating ants, and you're done, really. And this is going to last a long time. Let's put this back down here. Put on the lid, set it in a garden on its side. The ants will go in there and they will eat it. Now, if you know that you have ants that love eating sugar, skip the gelatin step. I've not found in my garden, I'm in Maryland, you know, specific ants that only eat protein. So I always really make this as a sugar and borax mix, and it works really well. I've used it for years. It's very effective, and it's going to kill off those ants, and it's really safe for the garden. This is not going to harm anything, you know, especially in glass, metal lid, a little bit sharp. Your pets are going to stay away from there. Perfect way to manage ants without spraying harsher human-made chemicals throughout your garden, or using other traps that are harsher chemicals. If this didn't work and I have an ant infestation that's really damaging my garden, I would go to the next step, to the human-made type baits and stuff like that. You don't want an infestation to wreck your garden. So you start with something really benign, cornmeal, maybe it works. Then you go to something like borax. It works really probably 9 times out of 10, and if not, you progress to something else. Again, please check out my journal, or check out my blog, The Rusted Garden Journal, for the complete recipe on how to use borax as an ant killer in your garden. And I will be doing a whole DIY series on things that will benefit your garden that you can just go and pick up at the grocery store. Thanks so much for watching. Please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com. And the last thing is depending on where the lid sits in comparison or to the side of the jar, don't put the hole too low or your stuff is going to seep out, and that's going to really allow a pet to get there. So put the holes up higher so that there's no way that what's inside can seep out into the garden. Thanks for watching.